So, Maurik, thank you very much for joining us in the Agile Strategy Meetup group. My name is Morten Elvang, and you and I got to know each other online. We have been meeting on a few occasions, sharing our mutual interest in how you can better make people work together. So when we had this series going, I simply was curious how would strategy, the topic of strategy in itself, look from your perspective. I mean, with the people you meet and you talk to and the thoughts you're having on it, how do you see that topic developing? Is there something new, interesting going on, or a new, interesting angle to explore? And in particular, in the context of agility, which is a bit under the weather at the moment, I'm also wondering if you have any advice for people who are not traditionally working with strategy, but potentially in the middle of a large organization and want to have more influence or want to get themselves more involved in that topic.
Yeah.
And then, like we briefly discussed before inviting everyone in, let's do it the normal way. Some time for you, potentially like 30 minutes to share your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we will open it up for conversation. Is that okay?
Yep.
In that case, thank you. Really good to have you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. And everyone for joining. We do make a recording, right?
Yes.
So maybe some other folks will join in asynchronously, which is beautiful and basically part of the topic today. I will share a few slides with just a few words on each and just share my perspective. And that's the second element that will return. It's just my perspective. It's nothing less and it's nothing more. And I do consider us living in a era, but maybe it has been of all times that we want our point of view to matter a lot, maybe most, maybe preferably be right, be confirmed, be recognized, be understood, get the attention we all deserve and long for as human beings. And sometimes I do think that without so much, for many of people, a God emphasizing your right of existence and giving you this unconditional attention, etc., sometimes I do have the feeling that we kind of substitute that by at least then loving ourselves a lot and our own points of view. And I think it doesn't help us in depolarizing a lot of debates. So I do confirm it. These are my experiences, my stupid assumptions, my N is one. And extremely open to learn a lot, to preferably let go of anything I knew today till this moment. So I share a few slides and let's see how we go from there. Let me do this correctly. And like this, probably this works. Yes, okay. Well, textbook, college, I remember strategy prof explaining any strategy can be successful in the right context. I was relieved. I was very much relieved because I thought, well, any strategy can do if it fits in that context. Okay, well then I was on the outlook for context. What's that context and what's that fit then? And if you understand context better, can you then make an easier, more correct, more efficient, more effective fit with your strategy? Differently said, if you understand the context, can you derive from that, deduce a strategy from that, from understanding that context? That seemed to be a perfect fit. So meanwhile, doing college, I had to make some money. I didn't have so much money, so I had to make a bit of money. And I told my temp agency, this student temp agency, you really got on Friday cash money from the work you did. I said, I need to work 3-4 times per week on the one condition, every time a different factory, because couldn't do anything else. And I said, I want to be in a factory, every time in a different factory. And I was in a lot of factories and people talked a lot. And police were talking all day. And I was just observing and just collecting and just memorizing and just being super impressed. So when the boss came in, people shut up, do their tasks. When the boss leaves, they talk. This could be handier. Why don't we put the toolbox a bit more in the middle? They didn't do any studies for that. They knew what, let's share those tools and then I don't have to work here and we both have beer at 4 o'clock. Well, that's very interesting. So I started asking questions to learn about their context and the context they create as a company. And I learned that so much was being withheld towards management. What they knew could be smarter, faster, etc. Then we started experimenting a bit. So with a bunch of guys, we started experimenting. We said, okay, let's do your idea. I take the first shift, you take the second, but we should have shared that shift. So the boss was coming and he said, I hired 2 guys for that. You should share that shift. We said, no, it's more efficient than we can do it. He can do this. And it's very easy to handle as one person. And I was like, no, that can't be. So like, that's super interesting. Very, very interesting what I learned there. So context. To me, put it simple, strategy is setting a North Star and how to get there. Setting, you have to create something of collecting insights about that context, but also convert that into that formulation of that mission, that purpose, that strategic goal, set of goals that you want to accomplish and stretch, be able to stretch the company, stretch the people and exceed expectations of customers, etc. The North Star and a plan, the strategic plan, how to get there. So context setting and get there. That to me are 3 key elements. I learned a bit over time from the selection of books that I've read and people I listened to and things I did in some 20 years of work. That context is a formula of a variety of things. And but being involved, interaction between people, and that it's about specific. In a time of Gen AI, we're the opposite. I believe this is about specific things that go on with my specific set of customers, my specific segment, my specific geographies, my specific services, not my generic ones in any way. So I find this balancing of Gen AI and human intelligence super interesting. So that's why we say prompt the people to understand what's going on. Don't prompt Gen AI. You can use Gen AI to augment what's going on and to learn more and to put it in certain perspectives, etc. But we need people. We need their intelligence, their assumptions, their experiences, what pisses them off, what they doubt, what we do towards customers, the doubts they get from customers, the dreams people share at the lunch table. It's all out there. It's all out there. And I learned that a lot also from this one, long time ago. Vinet Nayar, employees first and customers second. To a lot of customers, of our customers, that say we have an employee first and an employee listening and an employee well-being. I say, why don't you put an S to that? Why isn't employees intelligence, employees engagement, employees listening, employees involvement, employees well-being? Then there's instantly that element of that it's a network of people. It's a community of people. And in that community, things happen. Things happen because we interact together. Socially, we evolve. And socially, we evolve intelligence. Socially, we evolve and challenge and renew. So a bit of a blurry formula, and I didn't have an exact formula yet. Setting, formula of also indeed involving the people. Gartner explained very well in research recently that involving people in execution, in setting plans, navigating precise direction is actually growing the chances of decision, strategy, and change enormously. So you're just more successful when you deeply involve the people in setting not only the North Star, but also the getting there. So it's about empowering employees at scale, not just a bunch, but involve them, understand their feet forward, set performance indicators with them, milestones, how do you measure, etc. Get the people to do that. Don't hire a consultant, I would say. So we argue to involve people at scale for strategy building, but also strategy execution at a continual basis, another one-off. That means that's a deeply different way of doing business, but also doing relationships and connectedness with the people. It's a constant process where you jointly understand every next step of the company from a day-to-day operational basis, on a tactical level, and on a strategic level. And the interesting thing is that we've learned over the last couple of years that we mostly work with C-level, that they do tend to say they experience that employees, and they do this open strategy with thousands of employees, and they do emphasize people know so much more than I expected. I gave them credit for. They see all, but the willingness to embrace uncertainty is increasing if you increase the involvement of the people. If you're not involved, people feel excluded, and exclusion feels like physical pain, and people resist. So at one hand, I was taught any strategy can work in the right context, but I never was given any things to hold on to. How do you derive and understand that context? Maybe culture culture is part of that. How do you understand that in a way that that's actually moving strategy forward? Then this whole discussion about agile strategy, etc., yes or no, or more top down, is changing its course because it's always in co-creation. Let me see if the next slide is showing up. And it's about leading people through change. For me, no. It's about lead change through people. And to me, that's a different approach. So as a leader, do you construct plans to cascade down the communication of the why and the purpose and the plan and the goals, and then at a certain lower level in the hierarchy, the managers are instructed to ask employees, do you have thoughts yourself? Well, that doesn't work to me. And or do you lead change through people? On the deepest level of listening, you understand what's going on. What do you see customers responding to? Slightly, mildly negative, rejectively. Any thought? Do you have any thought? And should we take that seriously as a company? Because it may indicate something that could be later on a trend. That's an interesting question to ask your employees. It makes them think and makes them get on its conscious, more aware level of, yeah, indeed. Now I remember last week I had a customer and he was really like, yeah, I closed the contract, so my bonus is in. Checkbox. My manager was happy, checkbox. But that's an interesting question from the CEO. Now that you make me think hard, let me share what I noticed. And if thousands of people share what they noticed, and you can grasp that, have a way of aggregating and validating that, that's hard for a consultant to beat. So what do I want to share? This is in line with what I just said. You want to understand what's going on with everyone, their interaction with colleagues, their interaction with many people they know that work at different employers. So they collect so many beautiful perspectives on matters. How do you get that machinery going in a way that you simply have to allow that in a structured way to happen and take place, and to observe what intelligence is arising from that to build your strategy and to work towards further execution. So it's a very positive business case to involve people. We did finish with Tilburg University. We did finish a thesis. I can share the link, and it's only some 40 pages, but with great sources, and about the leadership characteristics that trigger people involvement to experience it as a barrier or experience it as something you're open to and take into account, and make sure that people involvement drive strategy. So what's holding leaders back and what's making them embrace people involvement at large? Well, what helps is that the business case is super positive. McKinsey has a very nice case. I find N is 60 quite okay. So they showed basically excess total shareholders return, and the more employees you involve, the more positive returns you get. We notice in our data of 100,000 of employees that were involved in strategy building and strategy execution with our customers, 100,000 of them, that they much say why they appreciate it, because I learn from other co-workers. I learn from the fact that people care about my opinion. And I realize that they won't follow up on precisely what I say. It's just my perspective, but we have a lot more of them. And that's interesting. So narcissism or selfism or the confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, we really managed to mitigate that. And in a structured process, you can mitigate those biases and allow people to really have that sense of, I win if we win. So don't lead people through your change, but lead our change through people. Let it arise in a structured way. Some technologies to involve people at any scale: O&A, Gen AI, collaborative intelligence, old school methodologies, consultancy. We do have customers that literally say, now I don't hire a consultant anymore because I have 3,522 consultants, i.e. employees. That's very interesting development. We do speak and do work also with consultants that apply our technology, and for more iterative, agile, open strategy-based people involvement processes. And they do say we have a lot of pressure on prices, and because companies learn that they do have that machinery in-house. They just need the technology to unleash it. I don't know. I think consultancy will remain, workshops will remain, town halls will remain, service will probably remain as well. But I'm not the biggest fan of these, because surveys don't allow people to collaborate. So you lose the key aspect of human beings. So that's, to me, a lost battle. That explains why surveys don't render a follow-up and a return on their money, because you don't have a clue how to navigate after you've done a survey. Workshops, well, you can have workshops with 8 or 12 people. What do you do with 3,524 employees? Well, you do have a lot of workshops there. So that takes a lot of time and you don't have that time. So you need to speed up that sort of process of understanding everyone. You can have a town hall, but it's a one-directional way of doing so. And people go home and they say, wow, did you hear that? And oh, I think this, I think that. And the CEO is already in his car. And consultancy we've talked about. It's a bit rough what I do here, I know. A lack of nuance here. There's a lot of nuance to be made and combinations to make. I want to lift out collaborative intelligence. Collaborative intelligence, the technology and the data and the human side of that we understand, that I understand. We have a process. This is not a pitch for oh, well, you don't even see the company name. That's good. We have this model to help leaders identify complexity, turn their issue into extremely deliberate, open-ended questions, to welcome any amount of people, internally, externally, audiences. We don't care, but the bigger the better. And the more involvement, the better. Allow them to open up, to speak freely on an individual, anonymized, asynchronous way. So people should be able to sit like Tom in the chair, not everyone looking at you, the clock is not ticking, colleagues are not like, why is Tom still reflecting on matters? So asynchronous is extremely important, and privacy for people to formulate their individual thoughts. And it's a process we believe they should be going through. Because open strategy, to me, it doesn't work if it's like a free ticket for employees to bash and yell and scream and have all these impulses and emotions, etc. We do believe that's important for individuals also to learn how to think reflectively, which is something else than how to learn to think critically. We challenge them on both aspects to reflect, think critically, and not be influenced in any way and not have the feeling that you influence at that moment anyone else. We do add that next step of in open strategy, agile processes, that individuals then encounter how others think differently. So important that the CEO creates open strategy processes, but we need, I believe, individuals should also not be taught, oh, I'm the CEO, but now I listen to you. Please, Maurik, have your opinion, and I will listen to that. I will obey it. No, the message is to Maurik, you're an employee. You have extremely beautiful perspectives. I'm open for that. But I also challenge you to learn from other people's perspectives again. And we notice that our AI helps to drive that process, and we make sure that people meet non-like-minded others and their perspectives in an anonymized process, but we make sure that Maurik is encountering 15 or more perspectives from others that are different. Then you start collaboration. How does it look? Because this is, I don't know if you see this screen. No. Let me do this.
We did see a screen with lots of little dots and
Yeah, you did.
things.
All right.
Yeah.
Now do this. Let me see if this works. Did you see LinkedIn opening?
Yeah.
Okay. This was his collaboration. Asynchronous collaboration. What do you see here? These dots represent an individual. And the individuals can reflect on what others say differently. They get to see on their phone simply other people's perspectives that are different. And what they're allowed to do is to enrich and appreciate, show appreciation for other people's perspectives and express that they support that, they understand that, they're inspired by it, they can express themselves like that. or the opposite, that they feel rejection or resistance or disagreement with others things differently. So we allow a process of collaboration to take place this way without people feeling hurt by other people, and not hurt, but hurt, and no feelings are hurt because nothing is personal. It's all about what was your argument and how do I appreciate, yes or no, your argument? How can I emerge from that? How can I emerge from that and think differently and rethink myself again? So we want people to be agile themselves as well, because people change their minds drastically, 40 to 60% on average change of minds. That's enormous. And we all know the forgetting curve. We are more wired to forget than to remember. We need books and lists and apps, etc., to remember. And we need a backlog and a ticket system, etc., to remember.
Yeah.
We are much more wired to forget. And this way, people can also trigger each other's thoughts and say, that's interesting. I forgot about that. Yes, I agree with that, etc. Let that take place. Literally, what I noticed on that work floor back then, doing those temp jobs, when people were like, that's interesting. We should tell the boss. I don't listen. Let's go to work again. That's what's happening here. People inspire each other, and people enrich each other and emerge new, more unique insights. And those unique insights drive actually most, to our experience, what could be happening next in the company. It drives people's behavior, people's choices, and as a CEO, we believe you should know that, you should understand that. Let me see. This goes back. So collaborative intelligence, and then I finish a bit. It has to do with privacy, because there's diversity of thought is maximized when people can join anonymously. I don't believe in social media. I don't believe that social means human. I don't think social means intellectual or distinct thoughts. So that privacy matters a lot. I believe in a process where people write. The brain is more deliberate, more thoughtful in writing than in talking. And teachers know, because teachers always say, prepare a bit of homework and give me your notebook, then I can check it. Writing, reflect, prepare well. To create convergence, in addition also to divergence. So at what moment in time you diverge people in their thinking, and then make sure the collective converges to most supported, most grounded outcomes. Go cross silo is, to me, very important element in a open strategy, agile strategy process. People should know from perspectives that are differently. When you allow, research explains that when we allow people to look up to people they favor to talk with themselves, they will look for people that look like yourself. So that also like football, or that also work there. You studied there. Oh, that's nice. Let's have lunch together. Boom. And in that same breath, and that same piece of research, these people perform less over time. So we say it's important to structure people to encounter others that think differently, and not allow people themselves to be on the outlook for people that think differently, because we tend to not do that. We tend to seek comfort. So you need a bit of structuring of that collaboration going cross silo to merge. We've talked about that. Non-like-minded, we talked about that. Time to reflect. Our brain is not so capable to have a meeting right now between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. We have that offsite. this Friday in a hotel. We have to perform intellectually, intelligently, creatively, right then and there. We don't work like that. We need reflection. We need time off. We need to go running, showering, whatever. Let it rest, let it sink, and let's see what happens. We have a much richer process. And if you deny people to go through that process of reflection and at night sleep, they will do it anyway, but then without you knowing. So we say, make sure you run processes of people being involved in a way that they can reflect and reflect again, be inspired by what others say, reflect on that, and then come back. Then you internalize most deeply that people are invested in that outcome. To debias a lot, we talked about that, make it fully scalable, 100,000 employees, 20,000 employees, 50 employees, no matter the country, no matter the language, and have a bit of AI to support the process. This I want to stop sharing and start a bit of discussion, find out what thoughts are triggered, what perspectives, experience you have.
Thanks a lot, Maurik. Would it be okay to get a copy of your material for sharing?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have this copy then with the university piece, and the slides if you want.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I feel you covered the questions that I was asking. Potentially, one aspect of the second question about how to get involved. I mean, obviously, you talk almost only about involvement, so in that sense, covered. But then imagine that you are working in an organization and you really think what you're suggesting is a great idea, and you want to influence the powers to be in starting with what you are suggesting. What's the mechanisms or the triggers that you see for organizations to start going the way that you're suggesting? How do the first connect happen to start going down the path that you're suggesting? How do you get started with this?
Of that people involvement matter.
Yeah, you can say of this idea of having broader involvement. I must obviously the whole open strategy vocabulary essentially. But how do you get started with it? How do you get to be in the situations that you described, that people can connect and collaborate?
Yeah, that's why we did this.
Okay.
It's not their technology, because they don't know it. It's new for a few years now, but they don't know it. Or they hear about it from others, about technology to support scalable people involvement, etc. They hear it from others, but they didn't see the technology. So we noticed also in the studies and academic sources that it does start with the intrinsic driver of a leader that acknowledges, recognizes, and is a curious person, and is understanding, what if I don't know all?
Yes.
And of course, you can have then two types, and saying I encounter both. Let's say, but when I do set any sort of strategy, it fits in the end, depending on the context. So if I tweak and navigate the context, if I navigate on culture, my strategy will always fit. If I navigate and communicate to the people, accept this, it's a beautiful purpose, let's go to my North Star, etc. And this big shot consultant worked on that, etc. And we must do and put a bit of pressure on the people, etc. Then maybe I can navigate the context in a way that my strategy fits. So so then the discussion is interesting with people we meet and leadership we meet, because you have this other group that says, still, I know that 70% fails of our change and strategic initiatives. So I need to, if I want to get this company one step further and get stay competitive, stay unique, and on a difficult labor market,
Yeah.
be able to attract people that do say, I want a bit of a say. I want you to take me serious. Then it's smarter from both directions to say, I don't want to miss out on their perspectives, and they don't want to miss out on opportunities to share them. Let's make those meet, although I still find it very scary to do so. So there is courage involved for leaders to
Mhm.
make that step of open strategy. And open strategy does mean to me instantly that it has an agile aspect.
Yeah.
Because you can't
Yes.
have a relationship
Yeah.
like I have with my wife, where I only once every year ask, do you have ideas? Well, she will kick my ass if I don't do it the next day as well. So it's a relationship matter. It's not a transaction. So if you make that step of open strategy, to me, it's by default an agile, iterative, constantly learning full process that you
Okay.
step in.
Makes sense.
Because
Yes.
things
Yeah.
evolve, things change.
Yes. Yeah. Let's open it up as well. Tom, Jan, Jens, or Ken, any questions, reflections?
Yes, I put some things in the chat. So I made a remark that this reminds me of Dave Snowden's sense making. I don't know if that rings any bells with you.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so first question is, can you help us relate this to sense making?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in our analysis, it's called Sense Builder. So you co-build sense with leaders that usually use our platform, our technology, with their staff, of their team, or an external consultant, etc. Um, um, so what we notice when we allow people to add their narrative to the equation and to a question being put to them, it's to us, we said it's not enough that that people can express themselves and that we understand their heuristics, that ontology, and aggregate that to make sense. Our process is slightly different, and I did have a messaging with Dave recently, and I would like to do a bit more with him because it's super interesting. We take the angle of making sure that individuals encounter other people's different narratives and ask them, how does this influence you, inspire you, make you tell your angle differently? So it's a bit of a Delphi methodology of people being able to rethink and understand what's the outcome of that. And they rethink in two ways to make sense of this mass of words, this massive ocean of words that we're collecting, to show that appreciation to what others think and write and express differently. Literally between -3 and +3, they code what others write. And in the second step, they add to that what action should we take as a follow-up of this. And third, how does this literally make you change your mind? So we have a lot of coding of uncoded textual input that way. That's our process of building sense. And we sort of cluster that, all the adjacents and lookalikes, etc. We cluster that, but it also has now a sentiment weight because some are supported more than others and some are really also rejected. So we sort of bucket that, we aggregate that, and we allow you to optimize that and make more sense of that than the people and our AI jointly could. Because in the end, as a boss or the hired consultant, you do have to make choices, and you're responsible professionally, financially, remuneration-wise. You as a chief are responsible for making the decisions. So we allow you to optimize the result, and that's our process. To us, it's fundamental that people collaborate with others that think differently. That's the main element. Else you can't get them going, get them to change their mind and to say, Jan, that's interesting. I didn't think of that. Oh, maybe I will try that for a couple of weeks. Thanks. We want that process to take place. So it should be a collective, collaborative narrative and not a aggregation of individual narratives. And that's, yeah.
So I have a second question, but I yield to other people who might like to go first.
Go ahead, Tom. Oh, anyone else? Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. So second question, in traditional strategic thinking, there is a notion of...
Welcome everyone to the Agile Strat.
Oh, sorry. I clicked a link, Tom, of you.
Okay, that's right. Good. I had your email. So there's the traditional notion of objectives or North Star or whatever you want to call it, where we want to go. All strategic writing has this notion. And then the strategy is the means to get there. Okay, and I see how you are collecting impulses that can both tell you what should our direction be, where should we change. I see that. And I believe it's probably arguably a very good way of collecting the information, but not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I think I should explain, but not perfect. I sent you a book I've written on stakeholder engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So all these employees, they are part of the stakeholder picture, but they are not all of the stakeholders. So one question would be a side question: how do we get the perspective of the other stakeholders? Okay, but my main question was also, how do you have any particular way of articulating the objectives and the chosen strategies, or do they just do whatever they do?
Yeah, that's so your first question to and I do want to I love to stay on that concept level, the intellectual aspect level, not on the actually what does our tool do or something. But technically, you can welcome any audience, external audiences, internal audiences. Any group of stakeholders can be invited, and you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it separately. We also see cases where, for example, hospitals ask patients and citizens for a view on healthcare in that region, developing throughout the coming years, and develop strategic thinking with an audience of citizens and patients. And then in the second step, for example, ask employees from the hospitals involved, how would you appreciate what citizens and patients are saying? So you can even have different groups reflect on what others say and mingle them, etc. So that you can do. The other aspect, I think, of your question is question design is key. Question design. So in a series, it's usually a series of these dialogues, of these interventions, because you want that relationship. And it can start with what surprised you most in the last couple of years that you didn't expect that would work out positively like it did? And what's the source of that. So that people have this post-mortem kind of way of reflecting. And it's an interesting check-in because then they start to learn to reflect. Second question in that same dialogue or a few weeks later could be, let's take us all some 30 years from now. Next door kid, or maybe your kid or nephew, will work at their company. Will it exist? What will stand out when we do exist? So to make sure that people learn also to think in terms of horizons, or even apply horizon 1, 2, 3 model, and have really questions for each step of them, maybe with the same group, maybe with different groups. So we can also SWOT or BMC or other models, Edgar model, we have questions integrated in a platform that you can use to have a deliberate modeled approach to have people being involved in these sort of distributed asynchronous workshops. And then further down the road, questions can be, there are 3 themes that really stand out from this whole process that we all went through. With external help from experts, but mainly from the thousands of you all, we aggregated 3 of them. For each of them in the coming weeks, we will go through a process together again, but how to set a milestone, how to measure, and what behavior we should encourage ourselves and each other to do, and what to discourage, and why, how to get there. You do that sort of questions. A few months later, you start asking monitoring questions, evaluative questions, such as, what stood out last couple of weeks that you're maybe even proud of, that you like to share, or maybe even like to show off to each other and poach about, like, wow, look at what we accomplished. Can you mention something? Is there something also that still or started worrying you or slightly get you upset, or sometimes a bit in any way triggers an emotion that you say, maybe we should pay a bit or a lot of attention to? So questions are quite storytelling like that instead of survey-like. So it's actually like, Tom, I'm there in another chair, not your chair. I mean, that's your chair. But I'm in your room, and we have a tiny drink. Maybe today we look a bit outside and we reflect on matters. That's a way to ask questions to employees and to evolve them. Directors ask questions such as, something puzzled me last night when I woke up worrying. And he asked the people to join in for some tactical operational issue to solve together. And how would that relate to our bigger picture? Was our bigger picture wrong? And you ask people that. So depending on the model you love to apply, the models that I learned in college, actually it was Tilburg University back then, all those management models, yes, they can work depending on the context, but in all cases we say, structure those questions in deliberate interventions at a collaborative, scalable level with all your employees or external groups, and grasp those merits and collect them and turn them into, what's then the next step? What's then the next step? What's then the next step? For that reason, I do think consultants still are very important to run that ecosystem of dialoguing and building that network movement and support decision makers on business unit level, on C-level, to run these open strategy processes in an agile way. Basically, in an agile way, it means the consultant will stay forever. And that's different than a waterfall model. So to me, I think consultancy has an important task to not only replace their juniors by Gen AI, but elevate and move up to in the value chain, what they can actually deliver in a different way with different technology than in the past to stay relevant. Did I in the end answer your question?
Very good. Thank you very much. By the way, can you tell us more about your use of Gen AI?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
so sorry, I just want to think, Jan, I can somehow sense that you have a question. That's true, or
I was just thinking about the timeline, how it all fits together, but I already heard it's some weeks or several months later, and maybe forever.
Yeah. Well, you can run these technologies in days. We've seen companies run it with 20,000 people in days. And with like 40,000 people joining. And in a case with, there was some in a governmental organization in the Netherlands, like 70, 80,000 people. And in a few days, we had 39 people join in. That's super interesting that you can actually speed it up like that. Normally we say, take a week for that first step, take a week for that second round, and let people ground it and reflect and take a few days off and think of it. So, but in a few weeks, normally 2, you have that done at any scale, and you have your instantly aggregated, validated data, real time manifesting, and you can move on. So you can actually speed up your process of strategy building, strategy execution, strategy monitoring, and then we see companies decentralizing this technology and allowing you managers to run this in their own department, to constantly do the check-in, like what are we missing? Is well-being still balanced with what we expect to do together? Remember the strategy you helped co-creating. So that's very interesting that people are constantly reminded of, this is something you co-built with us. This is ours. This is yours. So what can be a next step? Are you still okay with your working pressure? Let's find out in a team and department level, then if things are still going okay. And if not, get those signals and see if you have to delay or accelerate things. So additional questions are then a few weeks or 2 months later, what can we speed up that we've learned that we planned slower than this, but we can surely handle, giving our well-being of you and your colleagues you work with. Interesting to ask your well-being and of the people you work with to create this more collective, collaborative culture instead of the you culture, and allow also the question, what should we delay? What should we slow down for people to stay on board in a healthy, successful manner? So yeah, so different time frames, but usually we have these cycles of 1 to 2 weeks per intervention. Yeah.
Just a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Tom, you had something about generative AI, and then I had one thing I hope to ask as well. Tom, you first.
Yeah. Gen AI. Yeah, Gen AI, we support it in different ways, but it's not yet built in. And why? Because for now, we're quite stoic. We're stoked and stoic about Gen AI. Governance is very often unclear of the companies that run Gen AI. Ethics is a matter. Reliability, predictability is a matter. If you prompt today and you prompt in 10 minutes from now, you get different results. We work with governments, with banks, with large healthcare institutions. They can't build decisions on doubtful outcomes. So we focus very much on the human in the loop, and with our own AI to drive textual analysis and structure results and distribute results, but not select. Our AI doesn't select results. That's what the people do in that collaborative approach. That's what is super important. For the rest, we see and we encourage users already work with our question design lab. That's AI driven. It's a sort of Gen AI avant la lettre. But you can also use Gen AI, create beautiful questions, put them in, and run your show. That's beautiful. You can take data out and get summaries on top of what the people summarized and pushed up as most important. You can re-summarize using Gen AI. Be our guest. The data is yours. So we test a lot, we experiment a lot, but we're not convinced.
Maurik, I had one question I wanted to ask you, and I really love the story you're telling. So thank you so much for doing this. The thing is that it's a lot of people who are sharing their stories, but they're a little bit like sharing them to like a machine, something non-human, that then takes that information and brings it back to the human. What's your thought on this machine? It's my word for it, but this machine as an intermediary for human interaction. Is there an issue there? Would you, for example, be able to argue that there needs to be unmessed human interaction, direct human to human, or is it okay that you have the machine as a necessary element for the thing that you are building? Any thoughts around that?
Well, we do use our own AI to make sure that you encounter people that are non-like-minded, because we don't intrinsically look, especially in times of more sort of chaos, uncertainty in all kinds of ways, pressure on your money, the energy bills, the war there, etc. So then it's even more that our brain will go back to patterns, the thing we know, the people we know, the people we recognize. So we see that AI is needed to structure that you encounter others that think differently. And for that, we use our AI.
So understood. It's more like you are building a system of communication where the digital component is a necessary part of that chain of communication.
Yes. Like Steve Jobs said, let's build a $3 billion building. Let's make it round. Let's make sure that on that square and the toilets and the coffee, it's people meet. And there's collision of thoughts going on. But why that was our question. Why do we need that? I read that and I thought, why do we need that building to make people that think differently meet each other's ideas? And if you accomplish that, then you accomplish engagement, you accomplish more innovation, and etc.
So you use it in a way as a catalyst for better human collaboration.
Yes. And you need a bit of structure for that. Steve Jobs said, building. We say we do need AI, we do need technology to make that happen in a structured way. Repeat it very often. Give people super happy experience. They love to learn from others, but they don't look for others that think differently themselves. So
I really appreciate it. I had a chance to ask Dave Snowden the same question some years ago at XP in Amsterdam, and he answered very much along the same lines. So, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Anything we can do for you while we are still here?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, and send me things that inspired you, that made you think differently, or is challenging what we discussed today. Anything. Make me wiser and get involved with each other. That's what I prefer.
Invite accepted. And we have our personal connect in 30 minutes from now. Just wanted to double check because we had a bit of confusion before. So I look forward to catching up.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Very well. Maurik, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining.
Likewise.
Speak soon again. Bye-bye.
In touch.